Hello, everyone, and welcome to my session about supercharging your AI assistants using privately deployed large language models, RAG, and Zoom Team Chat. It's a very interesting topic, at least I think so, especially about the part where you're running your LLMs and your AI privately, which is a very hot topic, seeing some of the concerns that there are about deploying LLMs or using third-party services, especially when you're in a regulated industry or when you are in a situation where latency, data privacy, or cost is very important. All right, so let's get started. I'm not just going to show slides. I'm also going to show code so we can actually see how easy or how hard it is to get up and started. So let's go. My name is Lars Rosenquist. I'm a developer advocate engineer at Zoom. Been with Zoom since December. Before that, I used to work for Redis, VMware, Pivotal, and before that, around 20 years in software development. A quick look at our safe harbor statement that is shown in all of our presentations, and then we can move on to the agenda. I'm going to cover a range of topics today. I'm going to start off explaining a little bit about what Zoom Team Chat is and what and why you want to build apps for it. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Zoom's approach to AI and basically why every company that is developing features for AI or is working with LLMs and exposing it to their customers data, why you should have an approach to AI. Doesn't have to be the same as Zoom's. Then we're going over what is needed to build an LLM application, a chatbot, and then integrate it into Zoom Team Chat. Of course, I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm also going to show it in actual code. So we're going to deploy an LLM to the laptop and an application, and then integrate that into Zoom Team Chat. After that demo is done, the practical part, I'm going to talk about some practical use cases that you can start with right away. Those are use cases. Typically, companies will have these use cases. There's some similarities that we see across the industry. Then I'll talk about how Zoom can help you with building your own LLM applications or your developers in general. And then we open up for Q&A. In case you are looking for some of the references or links that I will be referring to during the presentation, there's a resource button at the bottom of the screen, and that will show, if you click that, that will show the links to any of the items that I'm discussing. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate and feel free to pop any questions in the chat. And while the demo is running, I'll pick up the questions, and at the end, I'll do the same thing. All right. So what is Zoom Team Chat? Some of you may know, some of you may not. So Zoom Team Chat is a platform for messaging and meeting chats and file sharing, and as well as scheduling. And it's all seamlessly integrated with our other products, such as Zoom Meetings and the rest of the components of the workplace. Powered by AI Companion, as you already heard in the keynote, AI is very important to us, and also how we apply AI in our products, right? Where AI is typically suited is in suggestions, but also scheduling items based on the content, or summarizing. Very important topic. You may have used it already in your own situation, but also things like translation. Furthermore, it's fairly easy to learn. It's intuitive, has a simple UI. It's another one of our design principles that we apply consistently throughout our entire product suite. And it's powered by powerful search. It's not just for you and your internal users or your internal developers. You can also extend that to your external customers, your own customers or partners or whoever you meet up with. And all while you remain the total control of who can have access to what, who can see what, and who can participate in what. And it's included at no additional cost, so you can feel free to give it a try whenever you want. Of course, you may not find exactly what you need because, let's say, you're a bank and you want to bring functionality in your team chat related to finance, or you're a healthcare company and you want to bring context relevant information into the team chats. Those things are possible, and you can do that by building team chat apps. Those are apps that you can deploy and host in a position of your choosing, you do need a Zoom account, set up the required permission, make sure that it can authenticate via OAuth. Then you build your app and you test it and you can integrate it. We also provide webhooks for in case certain events happen, like someone posted a chat message. So you can do that and leverage the power of your own data within the collaboration features that Zoom brings to the table. And that gives you, the ability to take Zoom's excellent communication and collaboration features and then combine that with the knowledge in your own company, in your own industry, and build some really powerful and relevant apps. Let's talk a moment about Zoom's approach to AI. Having an approach to AI as a company, if you're working with AI, you probably have one. But to make it explicit and to really communicate it to your customers is pretty essential. And I'll get in a minute to the reasons as to why that is. There are three pillars to Zoom's approach to AI. The first pillar is that we have an approach to federation. That means we don't just use our own Zoom-hosted models, as we like to say it. We also use third-party models from OpenAI and Anthropic. Because not every model is equally well suited to answer questions given a certain context. That's why it's important to use more than one model given the context that you're in, to make sure that you're always providing the highest accuracy of the responses to the questions. The second part, and this is really why it's important to be explicit about your approach to AI, is we are approaching AI in a responsible manner. What does it mean? It means that Zoom does not use any customer content to train Zoom or its third-party AI models. Now, whether you want to use data or your customer's data to train your AI models, that's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong there. Sometimes it's really very useful. What is important is that you're transparent to your end users and your customers about it. So you don't swipe something somewhere in your end user license agreement, or do something that may upset customers. Because your customers may work in an industry where they really don't want their data to leak outside of the scope of their own systems, right? And the third, last but not least, we use AI in an empowering way. So we add our AI features in places where it makes sense to do so. AI Companion is a good example of that, right? Because everybody likes meeting notes and everyone likes bulleted action lists. But if you ask sort of who wants to raise their hand and do the note-taking, nobody wants to do it. So it's something that takes up time. It's very essential, but it makes perfect sense to let an AI handle that. And there's more, right? So we are always looking at improving our customer experience, enhancing the collaboration, and improving the productivity. If it doesn't do that, we won't introduce AI. All right. The example that I'm going to be showing off today and that we're going to be talking about, and this is also a use case that I'll cover after the demo part of the presentation, is building your own local large language model chatbot and then using Retrieval-Augmented Generation in order to build a chatbot that can provide relevant context and relevant answers on your own local system. So I will be demoing it from my own laptop. But you can also deploy that into your own data center, or you can even deploy it on the cloud if you want to. That doesn't matter. If you look, let's say, a year and a half, 2 years ago, you wanted to build an application like this, that would have cost you a very long time, a lot of research, a lot of trial and error. But the improvements and advancements in the developer space around AI have been nothing short of amazing. It's really, really fast what you can build today. And I'm going to show that because we're going to be needing quite a few components. We're going to need our large language model, and we need to make sure it's properly trained. So we need the proper model. We need to host it. We need to bring in our data, or a subset of our data. For the demo, I'll be using a relatively small part of data. You need to integrate it, in this case, into Zoom Team Chat. You're going to be running your LLM local, private, and your application locally and private. Then we're going to see how these parts all fit together and then see how much effort that it will take. So let's go ahead to the demo application and let's look at the recording I made earlier. All right, let's get started. So in order for our application to work, we're going to be needing 4 components. So first of all, we're going to be having to run our large language model locally. And for this purpose, we will use a component called OLLAMA. OLLAMA provides a CLI in order to use to download, run, and interact with large language models. And it also provides a repository with a good selection of LLMs to choose from. All right. Once we have that up and running, we're going to be building our LLM application. Now, if you want to build an LLM application 1.5 or 2 years ago, you would have spent a lot of time building that. But these days we have frameworks such as LangChain available to us who provide a framework for building large language model applications. They provide abstractions and the different components to build those applications, as well as deployment templates in order to build full applications built on your own scenario, right? So whether you want to run a RAG scenario or a multi-model scenario, these things are all possible, and just by generating a template. And I'm going to be showing that as well. Of course, we then also need to provide our LLM application with the data that we want to put in it. In this case, we want to put some of our video SDK documentation data inside that. So that's some of the customization that we will have to do. And then we have to take those documents, split them up, and store them in a vector database. All right, once we have done that, we need a team chat application in order to integrate in our team chat, in Zoom Team Chat. And for that purpose, I will be simply reusing our Anthropic API Team Chat integration that we already have on GitHub and simply swapping out an API endpoint. Last but not least, we're going to be needing our marketplace integration in order to get the credentials and make sure that our application can communicate with the Zoom client in a secure manner and also can listen to the webhooks that are available. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is install the OLLAMA CLI. That's a matter of, I'm using Homebrew to install it, but you can also just download and install the CLI from their website. Once you have it up and running, you can start the OLLAMA server. And once you have the server up and running, you can use that to download and run models. Of course, I already have a model downloaded. Some of them can be very large, so that may take some time. Obviously, for purposes of time, I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm just going to run a model here and ask it what is Zoom Team Chat, and I'm asking it to keep it short. The model that I'm going to be using is Llama 2, and in this case the 7B chat model. Why? Because it's fairly accurate and fairly fast and will fit in the memory constraints of my MacBook over here. All right, so running the model, and it's now actually running the model, and it's going to be asking the question. There we go. You can see this is all happening fairly quick. Right, so it started the model, it ran it, and it asked and got a question. I got an answer for the question. Now this is super great, super easy. You can kind of use this as your local private chat GPT or something like that. And the great thing about this, of course, is that it's fully running locally. So you're not sending your data to a third-party service. You're not paying for bandwidth or tokens or whatever. You're just keeping this locally and running this locally on your own local laptop. And once you close it off, everything is in memory, so it's all gone. All right, now we're going to build our Python application. So we're going to set up our environment first. And then we're going to download and install the LangChain CLI. Again, this is all CLI based, yeah, and that's great because it means that you can generate an application or a template for an application just by means of a single CLI command, which makes it very easy to do, but also very easy to automate. Right, so now it will install some of the dependencies, and then we're going to create a new application. So this new application is going to be called Zoom DevDocsBot, and we're going to be using the package rag chroma private. Now, what does that mean? Now, rag chroma private is one of the templates that you can use and download from LangChain. So in this case, we're going to be performing a RAG with no reliance on external APIs. We're going to be using OLLAMA for the LLM, GPT-4 for the embeddings, and Chroma as the vector store. Right? This is super cool because with the one single command line, we can install and run this application. Now, as I said, there are a couple of things that we still need to do after we have installed the application. So, and one thing that we need to do is build our ingester, right? So in this case, I'm using the local Chroma database, and I'm going to be loading it with a specific set of URLs. Because of course for this demo I want to keep it short, so I'm not going to do it on the entire website. Right, so we're going to be loading these documents using a document loader, which is a component that comes out of the box with LangChain, so I don't have to actually code anything for that. And once we have set up our database and we load our API docs and we load our development documentation, we then convert and split and embed these documents, right? So an embedding is basically a tokenization of a chunk of a document, and we then store that in our vector database. In this case, Chroma, using the GPT-for-all embeddings. So once we have run this application, it means that we have the data available, and then we can start asking it questions. Now, loading it can take some time, but this is a fairly small set, so you can see that it's actually going to be running pretty quickly. Second thing that we need to modify once this has happened is that we need to modify our chain to again use the same persistent client, in this case from the Chroma database, so that we can use that as a retriever in the process that we're going to be using when we ask it questions. This is also where you would specify a prompt template. In this case, I'm going to be using a fairly small and simple prompt template, but of course you can make that as complex and as specific for your business as however you want. Now, let's take a look at what that will do. So we're going to be serving our LangChain application. Of course, I've already built this application before the demo, so it's going to be starting fairly quickly. And once it starts, you will see that you can immediately enter an API dashboard. The great thing about this API dashboard is that you don't need to code anything for this. This comes out of the box with the LangChain template. You can take a look at all the APIs that you get out of the box. You can try them out. And they also provide a little playground where you can ask the API some direct questions. Right, so let's ask this API a question. There we go. And then see what it does. Well, you can see that it's now starting to connect to the large language model, and the first time it may take some time to answer the questions, and once it gets up and running, we can see that it will start answer the question, and it will also provide the documentation because I asked it to do that, right? Now this is great, but this is only running for now locally, right? I am not using any Zoom functionality yet, but I'm also not using any third-party API services, right? Now this is the power of building LLM applications today, because the only thing I did up till this point is install Ollama and install LangChain, and I installed a template and nothing else. I mean, I slightly modified it by providing some ingestion. But let's see if we can now integrate that into a Zoom team chat. So for this purpose, I'm going to be reusing the application that was built by Ogis already and put on our GitHub. And the only thing I did was swap out the Anthropic API with our locally running API. So let's run this application. So we now have the Zoom for Team Chat application listening on port 4000. So if we take a look at the index.js, you can see that over here we did in fact swap out the API call to Anthropic with our local API endpoint. And that's basically it. Of course, in order to integrate with Team Chat, you will need to get your credentials, and that's where the configuration for the Team Chat application comes in, right? So in the app marketplace, we can manage our existing applications. And in this case, I have an application called Lars Local LLM, which has a set of credentials that I can then use in order to interact with our Zoom Team Chat client. So if I then go back to our Zoom Team Chat client, let's go over here. We can ask it a question. So we can say, hey, what method can developer use? We'll use the same question that we have over here. And then we can see over here that it will indeed ask this question. Now, again, it's the first time, so that may take some time. I've also set up an ngrok here because connecting to my local application from the outside requires a reverse proxy. So I set up ngrok in this case in order to connect to the application. And we can see that the question is being asked. Now the answer is being given back. And then we can see that the answer has come back into our Zoom Team Chat application. Now, the great thing about this is that I did not use any third-party AI services here at all. right? So the only thing that I set up in order to make this happen is a team chat integration via the marketplace, as well as setting up a very simple stack of applications in order to get this up and running. Caveats, this is not a production grade application, right? So it's very easy to get up and running and get started very, very quickly in your local environment. Of course, in order to really harden this in terms of security and get your prompt engineering ready, that takes a little bit more time. Now, the takeaway that I want to give you from this application is that when you're building LLM applications, the amount of work that you're going to be putting in is not going to be on the application side, because that's kind of, the frameworks already build those components. They already built the deployment templates. That's basically boilerplate code. The work that you're going to be doing is going to be in training and fine-tuning the LLM, as well as engineering your prompt templates. But for building applications, this is pretty much all that you're going to be doing. Thank you. Yes, and that's how to build your LLM application, right? And I kind of want to reiterate the statement about being able to, let me share my screen again. There we go. I want to reiterate the statement about the work being spent really not on the applications, because if you look at the different LLM applications that you can make, you can take a look at LangChain's GitHub repo, for instance, take a look at the templates, take a look at the applications that are being generated, and they all look very, very similar. At the high level, they're kind of the same. The implementations are a bit different. For instance, if you use, in my example, I used ChromaDB, but you can also use something like Weaviate or Redis or some other vector database to store it. But the structure of those applications, and because the implementations are behind abstractions, they stay kind of the same. So as a developer, in terms of code, yeah, that's going to stay fairly simple, fairly straightforward. But yeah, the time in order to make sure that your LLM is providing the right answers, yeah, that will require a fair amount of prompt engineering, as well as fine-tuning of your large language model. Whether you want to spend that time, yeah, that depends on your use case, right? Some use cases require a very high degree of accuracy. Yeah, then you need to make sure that your models and your prompts are properly engineered and also tested, right? And that will take some time. The great thing, I think, about building applications locally, so running a local LLM, local AI, is it's not just easy because you can do it on your laptop, but it's also for data privacy and data residency issues, for instance, right? There's lots of customers that we have working in regulated industries or other industries that where you don't want to share your data. All right, that's nice and great, but if you're thinking about where to start with AI and developing LLM applications, and you don't really know where to start, or you got some ideas, but you don't really know, where can you start? There are a couple of use cases where AI and LLMs, I would say, are a really great fit. As I said earlier, Zoom's approach is to really start in places where it makes sense to do so, where you can use an AI to eliminate a lot of toil or a lot of sort of boring, repetitive processes, and let an AI do that rather than let your expensive developers or other expensive resources do that. There are a number of scenarios, and I'm pretty sure that some of you will recognize this. The first thing is search. Because you're a company, you develop software, you have some internal knowledge repository like a Confluence or a SharePoint or Coda, or maybe all of the above. And as your company grows and expands and you build more and more use cases, there's more and more information being stored in those places. But yeah, it doesn't make it necessarily easy to find data, especially if you are in a company with a hyper-growth situations. You're accelerating so fast that the amount of outdated information versus the amount of correct information is actually pretty high. And a lot of times when I type my questions in the search box, I come to the conclusion that I kind of needed to know what I was looking for before getting the right answer. And this is where an LLM can really help, because LLMs are large language models. So based on your language and the pattern in your language, they can guess your intent. And they're pretty good at that. That's really the case where AI and LLMs are really good. And that means that instead of spending hours to search your internal knowledge bases and coming up empty, you can now get an answer within half a minute or maybe quicker. Or at least, if the information is not there, you will then know in half a minute instead of 3 hours. Summarization is another great example of a use case where you could start. Whether it's maybe you have existing meeting recordings, for instance, that you want to index and then provide with a summary, so it makes it also easy, more and easily searchable. But also when you look at things like AI companions, meeting assistants, stuff like that, that's also a really good place, to start. Or maybe you have internal knowledge base and you want to generate summaries on the documents that are there. Again, frameworks such as LangChain make these integrations pretty easy, because if you go to their website and you look, they have integrations for pretty much any knowledge database or Salesforce or Reddit or whatever database you can provide text files, CSV, they will have it. Templating. Yesterday, my son came to me and said, "Hey, I need to make a presentation on a topic for school." So yeah, I typed into ChatGPT, "Hey, give me a 5-slide overview. And these are the topics. Oh, and can you generate also the PowerPoint template for me?" And it did. It gave me a PowerPoint template. Of course, it's not done. You need to review the information, make sure it's all correct, and need to add your own fancy pictures and make sure that it's line. But in the pre-AI area, that would have taken my whole evening and probably a bit longer, and now it was done in like 5 minutes. So again, it's a really good use case for AI. And even the presentation you're watching right now is the title and some of the layouts I've done with AI, because sometimes it's a lot more easy to work from sort of, let's say, a half or sort of half fleshed out example than it is to start from a blank piece of paper. Last but not least, it's a bit more advanced use case, I would say, augmented reality. So you have customers where you have field engineers, literal field engineers, who need to check electrical equipment, etc. And they will use something like our video SDK service to build an application so that video feed is being transmitted to a support center where an AI analyzes it and proposes solutions, as opposed to having to dial into an actual person, which they still can do if the proposed solutions turn out to be insufficient. So those are some real use cases where you can get started right now. Are there other use cases? Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are. There's lots of places where you can start, maybe specific for your industry or something like that. One thing I noticed, if we look in the media, is that sometimes being said enterprises are lagging in AI adoption. I don't think they are at all. I think enterprises are very aware of what's hype and what's real in the land of AI and LLMs. And they have to do their due diligence, especially if you are, once again, in an industry where, regulation is very important, or there's immense consequence to the decisions that you take, financial risk. So yeah, there are a lot of things in the industry that need to be solved. I said earlier, the advancements in the development space have been, well, almost insane, because the speed at which you can build an application and get started is absolutely lightning speed. Yeah, and then deploying it in production with all the security and concerns addressed and all the accuracy and reliability concerns. Yeah, that is something that we still have to find out, or in the process of being found out. These use cases are typically very simple, that I listed here are typically very simple to begin with, and also without a lot of risk. All right, so how can we help you with this? Well, we provide a lot of documentation on our website. We also provide FAQs, and we can provide GIs of the applications that we build and the demos. We provide sample applications and source code on our public GitHub. So there's always something that you can check out. We also have our developer forums, where all of our developer advocates are active, and they can check out your questions and answer them. So if you have any questions related to integrating some of this into Zoom Team Chat, then you can do that. Then we have also a developer advocate and partner support, engineer support, people such as myself and other people that can help our dedicated customers to do that. And then, of course, there are sessions such as this one, and actually our entire developer summit, that are being made available. And I guess that brings it pretty much to the end of this presentation, and we can go to any questions and that you may have. Thank you, Otis. I am not seeing a lot of questions as of yet. I was in the poll results. It was good to see that many of you are already building your applications. Some of them already having your applications into production. So I think that's really, really great to see that. So keep on experimenting. I mean, I just showed you how easy it is as a developer to get started. Keep in mind, get started. That doesn't mean you're in production yet, but in order to experiment something, yeah, you can get up and running super, super quick. But also, I mean, like Zoom, at Zoom, we have policy around which third-party AI services we can use on our local laptop. Being able to run an LLM on your laptop that doesn't go outside of your laptop, yeah, that's very valuable because you can kind of use it as your private ChatGPT, and it's something I regularly do without the risk of leaking data anywhere. Mark, to answer your question, yes, those recordings will be up somewhere soon. All right. Well, if there are no more additional questions, then I'm going to give you back a couple of minutes of your time, and you have time to take a little break and then start enjoying the next sessions, I would say. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day.